Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Let me rest a little bit. I'm tired. Sometimes, I would say most of the time, in any situation, whatever happens, an incident, you can look at something positive out of it, but you can look at something negative out of it. Rarely there are things that are entirely negative, because if you look from different angles, could be positive for the other side. I can give you an example of a crime. Looked at the crime from a different perspective, negative looking from a different one, positive for the criminal if not caught. And even if it caught, he got to get what he wanted. I'm talking in terms of a certain kind of crimes, like rape, for instance. He didn't expect the consequences, but if he got caught. So what's going on here? We have if you remember that dam that was blown up, Kakhovka dam. I don't know who blew it up, and they try to point fingers at one another, saying, no, you did it, no, you did it. And they try to use the logic that they will not use when they analyze who blew up Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2 pipelines. And that is, who benefits? Que bono. And where the money flows, follow the money. These are the two that you start with in general. And then you go down and so on. They don't use that, because if they use that, and they try to use it in the dam incident, explosion, but they will not use it in the other one. So what happened now? The Ukrainians claim that the Russians did it because that would help them, do this in the south. They prevented the possible counteroffensive of the Ukrainians in the south. Well, okay, that benefits these guys. The other guy says, no, it didn't benefit us, because actually a lot of troops we had over there were, swallowed by the waters, and they were killed. And our defensive line was flooded, and everything now is futile, and so on. But we have here an incident north of the dam, which is a Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. The reservoir drains. That means instead of having a big body of water over there, you're going to have a smaller, which is just the Dnieper River, which is going to be much easier for troops to cross it both ways without being the reservoir big, right? It's much easier. You can cross it by foot. You get to the little Dnieper River. I don't know how big it is, but I'm assuming at that point it's kind of big. And it's easier, I'm talking, to cross it now than before. Including the fact that, I don't know where the flow of the river is, the initial flow, you can advance to it. Definitely, because I don't think the flow is going to be on the Ukrainian side or on the Russian side. It's possible, but I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle, the lowest point. Then that means you can advance over there. Now you're going to be easy target over there, target practice, but you can do it in one, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. You can dry after everything dries, and if you can cross it. So the Russians now are claiming that now the Ukrainians could possibly attack the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant that is in the hands of the Russians much easier, because there's no reservoir. The water is not there anymore. It's just the river. So let's see what these guys are arguing here. This comes from Sputnik. Ukrainians may attempt to cross a reservoir having blown up Kakhovka dam. So this is how it used to be, and let's see where is this located on the map. So I think it's Enerhodar. Alright, so here it is. This is the Dnieper River right here. This is by Zaporozhye and Dnieper right here, Zaporozhye right here. This is Enerhodar, and that is where the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant is. So this is the reservoir, and this is where this was blown up, right here. Kakhovka. Here is where it was blown up, the dam, and all this now is drained. All this drained. Now this You can cross it now from here to here, easier than before, obviously. So now they claim they can come over Red Rover and cross it here, easier than before, on foot. But if everything dries up. So let's see what else these guys claim here. So, Ukraine blew up bridges and dams and had plans to blow up more if it became necessary for the defense of Kiev to stop. Okay, this is what the Russians are claiming. On June 6, the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant was attacked, they say, by Kiev regime and suffered extensive damage to the dam. Okay, we know that one. He said there is a possibility they, the Ukrainians, may attempt to cross the Kakhovka Reservoir, which is now drained of water after they blew up the dam there. And it is currently drying. How fast it is drying? How fast it is turning from mud flats into terrain that could be crossed? But if it does, then they won't need any amphibious assault to attack the approach at a nuclear power plant. They can just cross what used to be the Kakhovka Reservoir on foot or possibly on some vehicles. He said, well, the river still flows downstream, doesn't it? Although the experts said that heavy Western battle tanks, 60-ton Bradleys and the like don't have a really good chance of crossing it yet. I think it will take months to really dry up for that, but we'll see. So this is what I think. You don't have to take my word for this. You can refer to the New York Times. Sleboda said, since the early days, trala. Okay, so let's go back over the map here. I want to see how big the river is downstream. Okay, how wide it is. I have here 1 kilometer, but let's make it like this. 500 meters. So that is, let's say 500 meters if I add all that. So it's 500 meters. Let's make it like this. 300 meters. 200 meters. So let's say 300 meters. 300 meters, more than 300. Let's say 400. Be generous and nice. 400 meters is 4 lengths of a football field. Now you don't just like that with your weapon behind over there, okay? And you don't go on foot as he said. And that's the same amount coming from up north as you see down there. Maybe some used for this and that, but it's the same. So if you have 4 football fields, imagine that now. Before it was, I don't know, 10 football fields, but now it's 4 football fields. According to the map, I mean, I just try to look at the proportion over there according to the map. Even if you say 200 meters, let's say 200 yards, there's 2 football fields length. That should be deep. I mean, you can't just go like it's nothing. So I see this guy's point, but on the other hand, the river still flows downstream. So I don't know. And on the other hand, where there's no water anymore, over there is just mud. That means you can look like this and you see everybody coming. Now, were the Russians prepared for that? I don't know. That means they have to bring some forces and get ready in case these guys are conducting an offensive. But to a certain extent it makes sense. To a different, from different angle, not really, because you have this empty space between the river and what used to be the reservoir, which is just when we flat open field. So that means you could be with no problem. I can see you. I don't even need binoculars for that. So, who benefits out of this? I don't know. The Russians definitely do not benefit out of this. Do you think they didn't think about it? I mean, if you're retards, they didn't, but I don't think they are. Because they think about their own skin as well. You say, well, they don't care because they are Russians and they flooded their own military downstream. We are to believe. They just didn't care and they flooded them so they can point a finger at the Ukrainians. They had to do it unannounced, because if they would have announced, it would have been too obvious that they did it because they pushed their troops back so they can flood everything. Makes sense. Criminals are criminals. In times of war, 50 versus 500 in this kind of circumstances, for them, normal criminals, doesn't make sense, you know. Not doesn't make sense, not a big deal. After all, remember how when it was the big patriotic war, remember the Second World War for the Soviets, they just went down. You die, next one, next, and then resources, human resources, material resources, and technology. Like the Germans did not have petrol anymore. No petrol, that's it, you're done. How are you gonna drive your tanks, fly your airplanes? Zero. Yeah, it was the winter, but the winter was for both, remember. Yeah, they were far from their house, but no more gasoline. That's how one of the main things, the reasons why the Germans stopped the Wehrmacht. Couldn't, anyway. Here is about the reservoir. So, thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.